Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to another tutorial. This is in fact not the color theory tutorial, but I did get requested a rendering tutorial, so I figured I would do this real fast while I finish up this drawing of my lovely boy, Varen. He's gonna be our model for today. You can tell that he's very pleased about this. So yeah, this is... I'm just gonna start with... Well, first I want to preface that I am recording this in one go, and that if I screw up, then I screw up, so, yeah, but this is gonna be how, like, generally, on an average day, I render my pictures, so yeah. I'm starting out with my flat colors. As you can see, we've got a lot of green going on in this one, because my Varen is based off green, so lots of green. Also a lot of gray, which does suck to render, but hey, if you can learn to render black, then you can learn to render anything. So, yeah. Starting off with my flat colors, this is self-explanatory, put them down. One other thing that I'm going to mention is that in my layers I have my line art on a separate layer, my flat colors, and then I also have this one at the top, which is actually something that I would recommend you do if you don't want to put every single detail into your line art. If you want to leave some of it to rendering, I recommend getting a nice bright color, I've chosen red, and make yourself some guidelines of the things that you want to render in. I've added a lot of clothing folds, some like facial structure stuff, and just general markers of places that need to be shaded, so that way I don't forget about them, because it is much easier to do it that way. And a lot of times using lines for these sort of things, like in the line art, it looks way too harsh. So I like to do this occasionally, but yeah, so I'm gonna turn that opacity down a little bit, and then we're going to start. To start off, I'm going to do something called hard shading, which is pretty much exactly how it sounds. So I'm going to make a layer directly above my my flat colors, and I'm going to clip it down. You can see that button down here. Clip it down. What that does is it makes it so that way you can only draw on the layer that is below it. So like, watch. It only shows up on my flat colors. And also, by the way, if my, like stylus or my cursor starts tweaking, like it freezes, that is not your device, that is my cursor is tweaking, and I really need a new tablet. But yeah, so yep, first off, what you're gonna do is you're gonna make that layer above. I always set it to multiply first. Then you're going to choose the color that you want to shade with. A lot of times I will choose some sort of blue. I think this time, yeah, I'm just going to choose a blue. It's going to be a little bit in the greener area. This is not like specific. This is just because my character is green themed, so I want the shadows to be a bit more green. Now, that is actually specifically for clothes. For skin, you're going to want to use warmer tones for your shadows, even if you're, the rest of it is different, because cooler tones on skin a lot of times looks kind of weird. So you're just going to get out just your average hard brush, just like that, and you're going to go in to all these places and start just filling it in. I'm gonna turn down my little thing, my like guideline opacity a little bit more, so that way I can really see what I'm doing. And the multiply layer will make all the colors that you have harmonious. And don't mind my cursor tweaking some more. It's gonna do that a lot. It's gonna do this thing where it like eyedropper picks, even though I didn't do any of that. Don't mind it. It does that. But yeah, I'm just gonna lock in a lot of hard shadows. I'm gonna follow those guidelines that I made myself. And I'm just gonna kind of fill them in, especially if they're shapes like this one here. Fill them in. if they're just line, like, I know what I'm doing here. I can tell what I mean by some of these lines. If you can't, that's okay. When you do it in your own art, you'll kind of know what you're doing. And I just forgot something important. Told you I was doing this in one take, but one of the first things that you're going to want to do before you do any of what I just did, because I'm just on autopilot, is you're going to want to choose where your light source is. I almost always put it in one of the top corners. You can put it from wherever, and you just choose where your light is coming from, and that helps you determine what is in light and what is in shadow, because things are going to shadow other things, and oopsie, things are going to shadow other things. So, like, if this light is coming up from the top like this, certain things are going to be in shadow, like, say there's folds coming along this line, which is why I drew it. Underneath that is going to be shadow because it is being blocked. Things are in 3D form. So, yeah. I'm just gonna go ahead and do a bunch of those sorts of shadows along these guidelines, and my stylus continues to tweak out and make me mad. I really hate this. I need a new tablet because it is tweaking out. So yeah, what I'm doing is just figuring out where the shadows would be underneath of something, and all you have to do is just think for a minute, what would be covered from the light, and then whatever that is, just put shadows there. Just gonna go ahead and keep doing that. Oh my gosh, I hate this stupid stylus. I really need a new one. But yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and pause this, and when I unpause it, all my hard shadows will be in. Alrighty, now our hard shadows are done. Once again, you just think about where your light is coming from, and put things that are far away from it, or things that are hidden from it. That's where you color in. And I've forgotten a spot right there. Now, a couple of these places, like the one I am currently drawing, right here, down here on the leg, a couple of these places are not actually in shadow because of being hidden from the light. They're just on the opposite end of the light, which is where the next step comes in. I'm going to get rid of that guideline because it will get in my way. So the next step is you're going to take your blur tool or smudge tool or some other way to make things blurry, and you're going to go around to the places that are just far away from the light and not being covered, and you're going to blend them out. You want to have hard edges. Like, you cannot just use your airbrush the entire time, because it will look very unsavory. But there is a balance. You do need to have soft shadows like this, but you also need to have hard shadows. So I'm just going around blurring a couple of places that I think would be correct. Sometimes I'm not correct, and so I just undo it all. Like that. That was not correct. I did it too much, and so yeah. Also, there are some shadows that are being created, but so one end of them is hard and one end of them is soft, like this one here, because this side is facing the light, but this one is facing the light, this side is not. So I'm going to blur this because it's facing the light, and it's going to be softer. But the other end needs to stay hard because it's facing away from the light. I'm going to do the same thing here, but on the other side of that line, it is still hard. So I'm just going to go around, blur some spots, leave plenty of hard edges. They're a little scary, but they're not going to hurt you. They're important. So, yeah, and my brush continues to tweak out. But yeah, just find those spots and blur them out just like that. And this is just as important, I promise. It is slightly time consuming though. Here's another example of one end of the line is soft, one side of the line is soft, one side of the line is hard. My blur tool is being a little silly. Gotta get smaller so that way I can get into this little crevice, but not soften that side right there. Just like so, and we're just gonna keep going around, and I think I've gotten most of them at this point. Gotta get these ones. Now, if you really, these, like down here, may need some extra assistance, because my blur tool, for some reason, is not actually all that powerful. So if I need to blur things really good, what I'll do is select the general vicinity, and then I will go to Gaussian blur and blur it out. I don't want it to be too crazy, so we're gonna put it at about there, and then we're gonna do the same thing to this spot here, and my brush is tweaking out some more. Joy. So we're gonna generally select the area, blur it out a little bit, and there we go. Gonna re-harden this edge here. That edge is defined by a line, so it's easy to see where that one is. And just continue blurring just a little bit more, and soon it will be time for the next step. This is a little monotonous, but I promise it is worth your time, because it does make everything look a little nicer. I'm gonna see if this is maybe a line that I need to blur. No, it wasn't. Just kidding. Let's see if this one is. See, sometimes you just gotta test these things, and I'm not perfect, and I'm not a professional at it. So, yeah, you just you get the hang of it after a while, and definitely, it definitely gets a little easier over time. Lastly, I'm gonna get this. Now this, I'm blurring the inside of the line, or like the side that's facing away from the light instead of the other one, because that is defining his shoulder blade, and I want this line to be hard because it's the definition line, and this one can be soft because it's just a shadow, which is a strange exception. But yeah, so now that I have actually I'm gonna try and blur this one real fast. I'm not gonna do it too crazy though. Some things need to be softer than others, but yeah, now that I have all these things blurred out the way I'd like them, mostly, I didn't like that, mostly, just like that, and I'm gonna blur the yo-yo also. I did the yo-yo because it gives the yo-yo depth. Now that everything here is blurred the way I'd like it, with some hard edges and some soft, what I'm just gonna do is lower the opacity until it looks relatively normal. I like doing things in increments of 5, so yeah, 35 seems good. And I'm also deciding that I don't like the color that I used, and so you can just go into the change color area and change the color. I'm actually thinking that a red might look good, and why I say that is because red is the opposite of green. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do green lighting and red for the shadows, which I will note in a minute that your shadows and your light should be opposite colors. So say you did blue for your shadows, then your light would be orange, because if you see, blue is the opposite of orange. Since I'm using green, technically on the opposite end is pink, but traditionally red is the opposite of green, yellow, purple, etc., etc., etc. So I'm gonna go with those red shadows because I think it'll look nice with green lighting, and I'm gonna lower it back down to 35 because for some reason I changed it. So yeah, there is your hard shadows. I'm also going to do the skin real fast, but for that I'm going to do a different layer, and I'm going to use purple, if I can get a good purple, for my color. And note that this is somewhere in the middle of this general area. That's important. You don't want to use super saturated colors for your shadows, unless you've got some funky lighting, because it generally just looks strange. So yeah, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to draw in, and I think I forgot to set this to multiply, and my brush is tweaking out, delight. So we're gonna do that. Clip that down, remember that. I'm gonna do the shadow under his chin, one under his nose, a little bit of eyelid, just like that. And if I recall, with my guideline, Myosi Varin has defined cheekbones, so I'm gonna do that also. But that does not look as sharp as I'd like it to, so I'm just gonna shave it down a little bit, which will probably not be visible in the final, but it's whatever. Gonna get the shadow in his ears, and with skin shading, you just kind of want to go... It is important to have the direction of the light in mind, but honestly, there are just some spots that are always gonna have small shadows in them, and I'm also gonna get the edges of his fingertips right here, because those are gonna be like away from the light shadows like this one here, so I'm gonna actually go ahead and blur those preemptively. So we're gonna do that. Do another one right here, and again, you'll get the hang of this. Study light, make the effort. This tutorial is not going to be perfect because it's not a tutorial on understanding lighting. It's a tutorial on how I render, so I'm just doing things. Yep, just get some shadows down. I'm gonna blur that right. Actually, no, we're gonna blur the top end. Actually, no, we're gonna blur the bottom end like I initially had. This one we're gonna blend on the inside because it's similar to the shoulder line. It's going to be a defining line, which I want the definition to be on the outside and not the inside. We're gonna do the same thing for the cheekbones. Skin is very soft, so when you render it, a lot of blurring happens because it's just not a hard surface. Hard surfaces, and sometimes cloth, will have hard edges, but skin typically doesn't. The reason I'm leaving a hard edge here and here is because these are lines where, like, there is anatomy happening. Like, this is a bone happening. This is a prominent neck muscle, which you can actually see in a lot of different areas. I love adding it. It's my favorite. But yeah, skin is soft. Don't leave too many hard edges. Just cause. Alright, I think that's good. And now you're saying this looks ridiculous. Because it does. And I need to set it to multiply. We're gonna do the same thing that we did to the other one. Set it to multiply and set the opacity a bit lower. And look at that. That's pretty nice. The other thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get an airbrush and I'm gonna color it bright orange. You don't want it to be too red because it'll look a little strange, but somewhere in the middle of your red and your yellow, fully saturated, go for it. Now get that airbrush, and in the places where there are shadows, like this, especially under the neck, add just edge lines. And it sounds strange, but there is this thing called subsurface scattering, and that makes basically your veins or your blood pop through when there is light hitting you. So when there is, where there are shadows, there is also strong light, and so that subsurface scattering happens, especially where the skin is thin, like here on the ear, where I have gone into the hair. Thank you, Ibis Paint, for allowing me to have an eraser bucket. So yeah, now that you have strange orange lining your thing, and I set that on the wrong layer. I have to redo all of that because I put it on the wrong layer. You need to make a new layer when you do that subsurface scattering stuff. Here, hang on, I'm gonna do it again. Alrighty, fixed. Now it's even more obnoxious. But fear not. For what we're going to do is we're going to set that layer to overlay, which is down here. And that that will make it a little different. Set the opacity pretty low. I think 20 is good here. I also think that my color is a little too yellow and that I need to make it a little bit more red. I was a little too cautious with my red. Sometimes you just gotta fix things afterwards. You set that there. I still think it's a little too high opacity, so I'm gonna set it down to 15, and bam, there you go. Another thing that I completely forgot about is blush. Grab yourself, I like to put it in this general area here, not too pink, not too yellow. I like to put it as a bright red or even leaning orange. I think orange looks more natural for blush. Grab your airbrush again and go to town. Wait, make sure you have a new layer. Go to town. Your blushy spots are your cheeks, your nose, your ears, like that. Sometimes your eyelids, because the skin is thin in these areas, and so they get to be much blushier. Your fingertips, your fingertips, your knuckles, I'm gonna put some there. And again, this all looks ridiculous. Get some on your shoulders, because your shoulders get blushy and tan. And do try to think a little bit about the form of the body, like the shoulder is a round thing, so I put a round shadow. The cheekbone, on this character, the cheekbone is very present, so you can really see it. Put it on the nose, you have all this good stuff. Now that your character looks once again utterly ridiculous, I'm gonna go ahead and blur the crap out of it, because even though I used an airbrush, it was still not blurry enough. I'm gonna go ahead and fix all the spots where this color has bled through. I'm gonna get rid of it on his eyes, because that happens all the time. And yep, now that we look thoroughly ridiculous, change it to multiply and set the opacity down until it looks natural. Setting it to multiply does not really change much on a white, or in this case, Asian character, but that is important. When you draw darker skin characters, setting this layer to multiply will save you all the pain of trying to color pick a good blush. I swear up and down on it, and it will make it so that way your art is, like, when you draw your people of color, then you won't have to worry about the whole blush thing, because that is a problem that happens sometimes. Alright, and I like to take that layer and just merge it down onto the original, because after you do it, you don't really have to mess with it anymore. So, now that we are here, I forgot the hair. We're gonna get back to that later. Maybe I just won't. But yeah, now that we're here, I've decided that this layer is, my shadows layer is still too strong, and that I'm going to turn it down some more. There. From here, let's see. This is optional depending on what lighting you have. We're gonna do some fun lighting today. Get your light color. Remember when we picked our shadow color earlier and we decided that it was going to be red? Well, go to the opposite of that. In my case, it's green. This was planned out. Get your, I'm going to say your airbrush, because hard lighting is very specific, and I don't know if I can do a tutorial on it because I'm not great at it, I'm going to be honest. I'm still working on that. And also hard lighting, like really harsh lighting, is a very specific scene. So if we want that, I can like, you just ask and I can do a tutorial on it. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna get your light color and airbrush it where the light is. I'm gonna put it along here because and this is once again where you're thinking about where your light is coming from. Even more so now, I would say. You really want to know where your light is coming from at this point. And again, this color is going to make things look a little ridiculous, and that's okay. That is okay, because we're going to fix it later. We're going to fix it later with our layer modes. So, yep, just going to do a big ol' layer of light. and just throw it on there. It doesn't have to be super, it doesn't have to be super precise. Just stick it on there. Make sure it's there. That's all that really matters here. And do try to avoid your shadowy spots, because that doesn't really make sense. Yeah, I think this is good. Again, it's going to look a little ridiculous until you get your layer modes fixed. But yeah, from here, take this and put it on Add, which is the glow layer mode. And again, turn your opacity down the way you'd like. Now, one thing is, light also has hard edges, a lot like shadow does. So there are a couple of places, especially where your light and your shadow kind of touch, like where I'm currently erasing. There's a couple spots where you're gonna want to erase, because you don't want those to be on the same, like in the same general area. You want your shadows, especially if they're hard shadows, to stay nice and sharp. So you just go around, erase a couple spots that need to be erased, fix a couple spots that need to be fixed, you know, and honestly, just be chill with it. Like, have fun. Don't think about it too hard, because that just ruins the joy of it. Right now I'm going in the hair and making a couple of hard shadows, so that way it looks a little bit more like hair. Again, I'm probably going to come back later and do a whole bunch of rendering in the hair. Still trying to decide if I want to record that, because hair is a whole nother tutorial, honestly, but hey. So, now that we've got this, and I've decided that this light sucks right there, and so I'm just going to erase it. Now that we've got that, yeah, that is your quote-unquote hard lighting. It's not super hard, and I'm actually, since I have such a strong and unique color as my light, I'm going to turn it down a little bit more. You want to be a little subtle with it. Alright. From here, you've got, I'm going to turn that down a little bit more. Strong colors with light, like green like this, it's hard to make it look right. I just realized that I forgot to do the eyeshadow, and I'm just gonna go into my oopsie daisy. You got to see a picture of my dog. I'm just gonna go back into my flat colors, add a single hard shadow. Actually, I am gonna blur it, but I'm have to be very careful because this is on my flats and it'll bleed all over the place. Do that. Just kidding, I'm not gonna be careful anymore. There we go. Do remember to put a shadow underneath the eye, like at the top like this, because your eyelid is in fact 3D and does cast a shadow on your eye. So now that we've got everything nice and doctored up, the next thing I do is my favorite part, and honestly, you can do this next part and it'll count as rendering all on its own. Take a layer, put it above everything else, get your airbrush, and make it gigantic. Well, not that big, but like pretty big. Pick a color, any color. I'm gonna pick red because that's the color shadow that I used last time. And just clip it first. Clip it down to your flats. Fun fact, clipping goes over each other, and so all of these are clipped to this base one. It's pretty cool. And on the opposite side of where your light is, if you recall, our light is up here, do a big ol' swipe. Just make it big ol' swipe. I am gonna make it even bigger, and then I'm gonna blur it out, because I blur everything out to no end. Blur it out, and then take a guess. We're gonna set it to multiply. Now, still looks ridiculous right now, but if you turn it down to, I like to keep it about 30. Depending on your color here, you can actually get pretty strong with this layer. I'm gonna go with 30 because that seems about right. And there's your, I like to call that my soft shading layer. And then another one on top, clip it down, pick your light color again, there's that green, and do the same thing on the opposite side. So wherever your light is coming from, reminder, up here, you're gonna do the same thing. You're gonna do that, and you're gonna set it to add. Or sometimes I like to put it on overlay depending on my mood. Most of the time I set it to add. This one is usually a lot lighter, so your shadow layer can be pretty strong, but your light layer typically is gonna be pretty soft. So here it is without those two things, here it is with. And that just adds atmosphere and ambiance and all that fun stuff. Lastly, I'm almost done actually. Lastly, what I'm gonna show you is what I do with my line art. Number one, I'm gonna get a folder and I'm gonna put all these things that I did to my colors. I'm gonna put all of them in one, along with the flat colors. And that's just to organize my my layer tab, because it is getting ridiculous. So yeah, all of that is in its own little folder. My layers are still separate in case I need to mess with them. And now we're gonna go switch to the line art. I can do this two ways. I prefer to do it a different way actually, but I don't feel like adding another layer, so we're gonna do it this way. What you're gonna do is, you see this lock button with the A on it? This is the alpha lock button, and that's what we're gonna press. What that does is basically it makes a clipping layer, except you don't make a new layer. The layer is locked, so you cannot draw anything that was not originally outside of it, but it's not a clipping layer. It's slightly more dangerous because if you erase, then you can't erase the things that you do, but I don't feel like messing with another layer and clipping and stuff, so I'm just gonna do this. From here, you're gonna analyze some of your colors, and what we're doing is coloring the line art. So I've got this green up here, and we're gonna go over the hair. See, you don't want your line art to be lighter than your color, which is what just happened. So what I'm gonna do is gonna make it a lot darker, and we're gonna put it up like that. His hair is not green, but now it kind of looks green, which is kind of funny. And you're gonna do that just with, I usually use an airbrush, depending if I unless I want to get really specific about where I'm doing this, then I'll get nice and sharp with it. But in general, I use the airbrush. You're going to go over it, especially where the light hits. Now, you can do this anywhere, but especially where the light hits. And just go over your lines like that. And that will make them a lot softer and, in my opinion, more pleasant. And just, again, find where your light hits. Find spots that you think would look nice. And again, there's happy accidents. It's alright. You don't have to make it perfect. I'm gonna do it over here on the yo-yo, because Varen likes to yo-yo. He's a silly guy. Now, I was a little too light there, so I'm gonna darken this color a little bit more to do it on the pants. I'm gonna get his little whatever these things are. I don't know really what they are. They're just a part of the design. Now I'm going to get a red, a nice deep red, and I'm going to go over the spots with blush on them. And this is too pink. I'm going to make it a little oranger. I'm going to go over the spots with a lot of blush on them. I also like to do the mouth because, lips. I don't do lips, but, go over the spots with blush on them. It makes them seem like they're actually warm. So, shoulder, other shoulder. I'm going to get his jawline, because that makes it a lot softer. And if you want it to get really soft, you're going to want to go up a little bit. So if we were here, you're going to want to go up and towards the middle a little bit. I also, there are a couple places that I prioritize when I'm doing this. Inside lines, so lines that are inside the general, contour of the thing. So inside lines get the color treatment. Spots with light on them and spots with blush on them. Those are the spots that I will get the most often with this whole shebang. I'm gonna see if I can get a little lighter right there. Yeah, I can. And use your pen pressure a little bit to make things softer. It's always a good time. And yeah, that's pretty much what I do. I'm trying to think. I forgot the hair. Since I forgot the hair, we're gonna do a very simplistic version. I can do hair nice and detailed, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna get, this is a blending brush. This is a brush that is meant to be soft, but not too, like soft on the edges here, but not like crazy soft like the airbrush. And what we're gonna do is we're just gonna do little strokes all over the place, and those are going to be our highlights. Honestly, I'm picking colors that I know already are going to look right, because this green is lighter than all the rest of the colors, and I know it's going to look right. If you're in doubt, pick the hair color itself and then set the layer to add mode. It always works. But if you know how to choose proper colors, then go for it. I guess that's what my color theory thing is going to be on. Maybe. I was just kind of going to go over general stuff. But anyway, figure out some spots, and I'm just kind of going with the flow here. Try to generally follow the direction that the hair is supposed to be going. As you can see, I am just kind of, like, you can see that the hair comes like out from here and then it curves down like around the head, which is what I'm going for. I'm gonna get it right there, gonna get a little bit over here, some up here, some over here. Yeah, and just kind of, this emulates hair strokes. One good thing to do is there should, well, I shouldn't say should, but there is sometimes a definitive like line of highlights. And since our light is coming from over here, it should be like right across there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all the highlight, I'm just going to highlight in like a line across that spot. And that, like, just make a bunch of them at once. And bigger ones too. Just go across. Try not to hit your shadows too much, but it really doesn't matter a ton. There's your cross there. I'm gonna get it right there too. And right there. Even though that's not technically a part of it, I don't care. So there's your cross. And that just helps it to seem a little bit more realistic. There are going to be some really long highlights, so connect a couple of your, if you can see that a couple are like in a line, curve them, connect them, because that helps emulate hair a lot. And yeah, I think that's about good. Sometimes if you need to, you can lower the opacity. I'm going to see what it looks like on add mode, just to take a little test see to see if it looks better with or without. I don't think it really changes much at all, but we're gonna set that to 75 on add because I feel like it. And there we go. Last thing I do is I take pure white. Try not to color the inside of your eyes pure white, by the way. You would not believe it, but this is not pure white. This is actually kind of yellowy. It was even darker, but I think when we added our big light, soft light, I think it made it a little lighter. I'm going to take this off alpha lock so that way I can add another highlight. Hit the eye. Oops, that's a little too big. Right there. Make sure it's visible. Makes life nicer. If you're really feeling fancy, grab a neon color that fits the vibe of the picture. In my case, green. And like outline the outside of it like that. That's not what I do a lot of the time, but I think it makes it look cool. Yeah, there we go. That's generally how I render my pictures. If you have any questions, ask. I could potentially do a more in-depth hair tutorial because I completely forgot about it. Sorry for my rambling. But I did have to do this in one take, and I needed to make sure that I had everything. I don't have a script, I'm just going for it. Yeah,